I want to welcome you all to the Dr. Deborah Show. It's wonderful to have you with us. And as you know, this show is psychoeducational. It's in the area of neuropsychology and well-being, but it's not meant to replace professional mental health advice or therapy. So if you do believe you suffer from a particular disorder, please do reach out for professional help. And we're live here at KCSB FM Santa Barbara 91.9. KCSB is a platform for cultural expression and thoughtful discussion, providing a diverse educational forum. And I'm a UCSB alumni, and I live locally in Santa Barbara. And this show is all about our community and how to create compassionate conversations about our well-being and health. And today on the show, we're going to be talking about mental health and well-being with a focus on healing and transformation with our very special guest, Deirdre Hade. Did I say that right? Okay, great. Deirdre Hade is a born mystic and visionary dedicated to healing those who have suffered from trauma, pain, and loss. She is a member of Jack Canfield's Transformational Leadership Council, an organization of about 150 world leaders in the field of personal transformation. And Deirdre's teachings on the power of meditation are featured alongside the writings of other modern-day spiritual luminaries, and she has received the F.L.O.W.E.R Award for her pioneering work in energy healing. Her humanitarian work has also allowed her to be knighted by the Sovereign Order of the Knights Hospitallers of St. John of Jerusalem. And when Deirdre headed off to college at 17, she also was lucky enough to meet Joseph Campbell and work with him. And it was a meeting that set the course for the rest of her life. Her parents were research scientists in biochemistry and physiology, and Deirdre danced with the New York City Opera. She's choreographed for the Banff Center of Performing Arts and the Opera, Memphis, and Southern Opera Theater. She has had a dance company, or has a dance company, called Celebrations of the Sacred, and directed the Memphis Ballet Company, where she created the first inner-city ballet program, teaching to disadvantaged youth and awarding scholarships. She also choreographed and performed in Stephen Halpern's Summer Wind song, which was the inaugurating video of the VH1 channel. Yay! And Deirdre founded the Radiance Journey, which is a system of energy healing and mystical wisdom that's based on the Kabbalah's Tree of Life. And she has traveled and shared this with over many countries, 132 countries, and thousands throughout our own country have participated in this, including at the Omega Institute, the Academy of Life in New York City, the Evolutionary Healing Institute, and Sacred Space. She also founded the nonprofit organization called the Foundation for Radiance, which is a program that works closely with the Women's Prison for women rescued from abuse and sexual slavery. And she also designed My Angel Pillow to bring the healing comfort angels to children in hospitals all across the country. Deirdre is a keeper of comfort of the World Peace Flame and founding member of the Association for Transformational Leaders of Southern California. Deirdre was featured as Love Luminary and has been named a Light Luminary in the book called The Light. She's also the author of the book called The Not So Little Book of Surprises. She's also a COVR Visionary Award Silver recipient, which she created with her husband, William Arntz, the creator of the film What the Bleep Do We Know, and award-winning photographer Andre Ballo. Her new book, The 5 Archetypes for the 21st Century Woman, How to Live in Full Feminine Power, will be released in spring 2020, so look for that. And Deirdre is also the mother of 2 children, Layla and Eric, and she's married to her great love, Will Arntz. And they live happily ever after in our lovely town of Santa Barbara. So welcome to the show, Deirdre.
Great, thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I'm so happy to have you. We're so lucky to have you in our community. And as you can see, Deirdre has had you have a very expansive variety of things you've done. So I'm excited to learn about all of those different areas. Here's what's going to be coming next. I'm going to talk a little bit about just what is mental health, mental health stigma, and then we'll be talking about mental health and healing and transformation, and then prevention awareness through healing and transformation. And I like to just briefly explain what I would describe as mental health. Everybody has a little bit of a different feeling on that, but it's kind of like a physiological balance, meaning our nervous system, our heart, our brain, our gut, our thoughts and feelings kind of feel balanced, and we're able to organize and integrate all of those giving us a sense of inner peace. I was wondering, Deirdre, how would you describe mental health?
Well, very much like you. I really like your holistic approach of including the body and the mind, because the body and the mind really are one and of the same. For me, mental health is having the ability to when life throws a curveball at us, or life happens as it does, we may react appropriately. Grief, sadness, despondency, or paralysis, or anger, all these are appropriate responses to when life happens and it's something painful. But mental health is when you have a center core of yourself that you can connect to, that's strong enough that it's your rudder. So you come back to that center. And we get out of mental health, and we all have at some time gotten in that place. I have. That's how I know it so well, is that we get off and we can't find our rudder. So mental health is coming back, being able to have that center to move through life and not have life take us out.
I like that very much. It kind of reminds me of, in a way, it's akin to the idea, I explain it like a tree. We have to feel rooted and grounded and be able to sway and blow with all the different seasons of life.
And have a strong trunk, strong limbs. I mean, ironically, my work is based on the tree of life. And for me, a tree is really the beautiful image of ourselves and our consciousness, our psyche, our soul, working in order and harmony.
Well, I know you know a lot about the Tree of Life, because I remember I was just reading about that. Could you explain a little bit more about your Tree of Life, the Kabbalah's Tree of Life work with your energy healing and mystical wisdom?
Yes, I'd be glad to. Well, I was very connected to the Tree of Life long before I learned about the Kabbalah. Since a little girl, the trees used to talk to me. I had a relationship with trees the same way I would with pets, my dogs or my goldfish. And I had relationships with trees as if they were people. And so trees have always spoken to me and given me strength and peace and calm. And then later on in my journey, my spiritual journey of awakening, I learned about the Tree of Life. And the Tree of Life basically is a system of order. It's an energetic system of order that's in our body and in our mind. It's very ancient. It goes all the way back to Egypt. They're spoken, and the Tree of Life includes the chakra system. So it's an expanded version of the chakra system.
Wow. So it's very historically, like, I guess you're saying this has been going on for a long time, the study of the Tree of Life. And
yes.
I know. I feel that way about trees. I feel like the trees are just kind of all around us, protecting us, and they're like people too. And I always tell people, if you turn to nature, trees usually aren't going to hurt you, and I guess like if they accidentally fall or something. But for the most part, actually, trees provide a lot of beauty and importance.
Actually, and it has been proven neurologically that if you're feeling stressed or you have a problem, if you sit and look at nature and just let your mind gaze, you press a reset button.
Definitely.
That in and of itself is a meditation.
Yep. And
we've been doing it for as long as we've been around. That's what we've been doing.
In Scotland, they're actually prescribing nature, medicine, because people aren't doing that. But I do think nature is very grounding, because also that's just where we came, it's part of the earth. And so basically you feel like mental health is learning how to kind of move through these different life experiences.
Right. Having a way to get back to center.
Center, that's right. You're talking about the center.
Getting back to center, having, knowing how to get there and then how to stay there and root yourself there, so that when, the ship is in a storm or it looks like it's going to capsize, you don't have to capsize with the storm. So that's the work I do and teach, to give these tools, because when big storms come, there really are opportunities to transform there's like a treasure there. There's a treasure in a sunken pirate ship at the bottom of the ocean.
It's so true.
We just have to know how to go get it.
Well, I think people are afraid of that too.
Yes.
Because it's uncomfortable, it's new. But I feel exactly the same way. It's such an opportunity because it can be a time for evolution, change, movement, doing something new, and experiencing something in a totally different way. That can expand
finding
you.
happiness.
Yeah.
The inner obstacles of our experiences and our traumas, they truncate our natural state of happiness because, Dr. Deborah, within us is that child we see, they're always so happy. We all have that child inside.
That's true.
And part of health, I believe, is knowing how to open the door and allow that child to have fun and to be happy, just happy at life.
And allowing that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're saying that by, utilize or maximizing on nature.
Yes.
And I do think, there's so many different types of trees that we all can find probably a tree we really enjoy. But I like to lay under trees and watch the light space between the leaves. And also, it's kind of like music certain days, the different sounds the leaves make. So I like trees as well. Beautiful. I like that description. I also just like to, every show, I go over the idea that according to the World Health Organization, mental health is the largest public health priority and the largest financial burden that's of any health issue in the world. That's according to the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum. So that's why I just like to reinforce that. And then also I do talk a little bit about mental health stigma. And there's a great report called the Centers for Disease Control, called Attitudes Towards Mental Illness, and they found that stigma and embarrassment are two of the top reasons why people with mental health issues don't seek help or medication. And like Deirdre is saying, I think, issues surrounding mental health affect people from all walks of life where none of us are immune to it. So, it's really a skill to learn how to tune into yourself, how to take care of yourself, and find that kind of grounding center.
Right, and also, it's also important to know that we are a psychological, biological, biochemical, spiritual being. And any one of those areas can break. So it's important to know that the brain is an organ just like your pancreas or your stomach or your heart. And we don't punish people if they have a heart disease. We don't punish people if they have diabetes. But if somebody's brain, which is an organ, has a disease, isn't working right, there's a stigma. And I'd like to see that we lift that stigma off and recognize that the brain is the master gland that is organizing how we talk, think, walk, behave, say, do. But if it's broken, it's like if you had heart disease, your heart wouldn't be working right. You'd have to take medicine, or you'd have to change something, or you might even you would have to live a different kind of life to take care of your heart. It's okay if you have to live a different kind of life to take care of how your brain operates. And when I work with people who go in and out of different mental states, I say, look, you be proud of this brain, and you got a special brain, but it requires special treatment. And that means if you have to take supplements, if that means you have to take medication, that's okay. And if that means you have to meditate an hour and a half a day, you do it, because that's what I have to do. I have to meditate.
Well, meditation, I think meditation's like a pill in a way. That's what I do too. I'm not a big pill person, but I do agree. If you have to take it, sometimes it's.
I'm not saying it's the only. I just want to open up the conversation that there's many different ways to come at healing. And I come from an energetic perspective and a deeply psycho-spiritual perspective of going into our inner world and our inner, the ghosts and the archetypes and the voices, and being able to give them a place to speak and heal in a safe, very safe environment. I'm just saying that sometimes someone needs to take a medication for serotonin or dopamine, something they're not getting.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying it's okay.
It is okay. Well, and actually it's good that we have those things, because, I know in past times people actually suffered tremendously more because we didn't have any forms of treatment. So, I mean, I think now we have a lot of variety. But, I mean, the key is to access, and get help.
And then also today, Dr. Deborah, I think, we're talking about the garden variety person. But one thing I'm seeing that really breaks my heart, and we're all seeing, especially in America right now, is where someone cracks into a very serious mental illness, meaning they lose control of all order and they act out in a way that kills people.
Right.
So we need to understand this so we can prevent, hopefully, people from having to go that where the psyche actually breaks in half. And when the psyche breaks, as you know, sometimes it doesn't come back together if it's broken too deep.
Right. That's why it's so important to keep ourselves integrated. That's been a big word I've been using the last 6 months, because I feel like sometimes we get so fragmented, and the more fragmented we get, we really have to keep coming back. And that's what I did a lot of my research on, is how we regulate ourselves and get back to that baseline. And the more we can do that, I think that's why mindfulness is so beautiful, because it's free. You can do it anywhere, and you can do it for yourself. You don't have to. It doesn't require getting it from anyone else necessarily, and you can recalibrate yourself, and you can kind of learn what you need in your rhythm.
Right, and also when you go into that kind of mindfulness, what I work with people that I'm giving a workshop or retreat or counseling is what I call the silent watcher.
Yes.
And the silent watcher is our third eye. It is a place within every one of us that is a neutral observer. And it's really important to know that that this place doesn't have judgment on whatever you've done.
That's key.
It's key. There's no it simply watches you. Watches what you said, how you said it, where your thoughts are going. Are your thoughts tanking? Are you starting to ruminate, obsess about self-destructive behavior, something harmful? Unless you can get into your silent watcher, it's very hard to change those inner patterns.
Yeah.
But once you get into your silent watcher and you're like literally, I do a meditation where I put a little person on the front of your head, a little I call it mini me.
Yeah.
And we just look down inside. Once you do that, the answer, the innate wisdom that you have, every single person has an innate wisdom on how to transform and how to heal.
Yep.
Bubbles up.
It's within them.
100%.
And then because there's no judgment, they don't feel like they have to analyze it or scrutinize
No,
it.
because once you analyze it, you're in your left brain.
Right.
You're in your ego. You want the ego out of the way. That's how you got in trouble in the first place. You just tell the ego, okay, here's a cracker, sit in the corner, chew on it, whatever. And go to this little mini me of complete neutrality, just watching. And by taking off the onus of judgment, by an inner compassion, an inner healer comes, because we are all healers. We all have an ability to heal ourselves and each other.
Nice.
It's innate.
Yeah.
It's
you think it's
we're
biological?
born with it. It's biological.
Yeah.
And it's also spiritual. It's in the deepest place of our spiritual energy, of our psyche. It's an archetype.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you did a lot of work with Joseph Campbell, so you understand archetypes for people who, I mean, I love that idea of like kind of, so you're saying picture kind of like a little you, like a mini you. You said mini.
Mini me. Mini me sitting on your forehead and just go up there, close your eyes and then just sit up there or stand, whatever you want to do. Put your hand on your hip, however you want to do. And now just look down.
Like as if you're that little mini me.
Exactly. Okay. And now just watch your thoughts from there.
So you're not looking at your body. You're just listening to your thought
inside.
process. And I think that's hard for people to transition. So that's maybe a tip of how to kind of get yourself into that place and space.
Well, one thing I've learned and what I work with the Radiance Healing Journey is visualization. And if you cannot use visualization, some people don't, then you use memory recall or sense or a sense like in your body. Like I'll say, touch your head, touch the top of your forehead, press it, and then feel that place. Feel that place in you.
Okay.
Now put your mind there where that little place is, and from where your fingers touching your forehead, now watch your thoughts from there.
That's hard to do.
But that works for people who don't visualize. See, everybody's brain is different.
But also could give you feedback if you're not visualizing enough, maybe. And also, do you think that takes some time to kind of sink into that space and place, or you're
You
probably
know,
good
when
at
I
that?
work with people, no, you can get there in about 10 minutes. It's just going through a little
So
process.
10 minutes, yeah, that's okay. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I was just trying with you, but I think also you're saying you're in a space and place where you're really focused on this intentionality and you're moving through this. But I also think we lose sense of like the little, girl or boy inside of us. So it's kind of a playful part, and I think when we become judgmental, we lose, all that playfulness, curiosity. So it's really important. Thank you for that sharing that. Deirdre, I was wondering, how would you describe mental health, like in relation to transformation and healing?
Well, ultimately, all healing comes to the same place. And I've been on a healing journey my whole life, starting with my mother who had cancer at 16, and she was given a year to live. And we began to meditate together, and a light came in the room, and she lived 13 years longer than they gave her.
Nice.
Medically. There was no reason this should happen. No one could figure it out. So starting there, my entire life study of many modalities of spirituality and healing, therapy, working with my mentor, Dr. LaWanda Steinberg in Los Angeles. She was the head of the USC Department of Psychology for the first woman, is that we all end up meeting ourselves, meeting the real self of who we are. And that for every person is different, but it's all based on the same virtues.
Mm-hmm. Well, we all have something beautiful to offer, but it's not going to all be the same. I think that's kind of an odd misnomer or idea that we've been like living with, is that we're all supposed to be kind of the same. Because I hear that a lot in my practice, where a lot of comparing and, like I should be doing it this way, and if I'm not doing what that person thinks I should be doing. But that's why this is a really beautiful kind of exercise, because also you're learning to kind of reconnect with yourself.
Your unique self. And there's only one of you in the entire universe, and you are part of a tapestry called this beautiful life. And if you could imagine a tapestry's hanging on a wall, and there's like the blue threads are missing, you'd say, wow, I wonder what that tapestry would look like if the blue threads were there. That's how important you are. You that are listening, every single person, that's how important you are here. Every person has a purpose, and your purpose may be simply overcoming your own demons. Your purpose doesn't mean that you're going to be famous. Your purpose may be only known between you and a higher power, or you and your wife or your husband or your kids. It could be intimate. But your purpose is necessary for this tapestry to work. That's how important everybody is.
Exactly. So everybody has a set kind of meaning and place and space in this world. So if you are listening, it's important just maybe to check in with yourself and think about what your gifts are. And if you find yourself thinking, oh, well, but that person has that and I don't have that, try to let yourself go, like Deirdre is saying, and just really see if you can move into that younger kind of childlike, I guess, part of yourself.
That's right. Our inner magical child. And what I found is in healing that if you don't let your magical child out to play, the magical child would turn into a little gremlin.
That's
and
right.
will really nip at your heels. So you won't be able to get away from them. Right?
That's true. Well, I know. I think sometimes we just grow up so fast. Like
way too fast.
Way too fast. And then we lose that like lighthearted spirit.
Imagination, it's wonder. I like to say, imagination is the key to transformation.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you think if you can lose yourself in imagination, then you can
transform.
Nice. And we were talking a little bit about transforming. I mean, I think if you're interested in transforming, what that means basically, I mean, I was talking about it from Carl Jung's perspective, but maybe Deirdre could explain another way too, is just that, sometimes we have paradoxes in life. It's like a triangle, and we kind of have two things that we're kind of battling with or trying to deal with, and we can get stuck with those like a seesaw.
Correct.
And so if we can kind of allow ourselves to move into this other space and place that's different and new and creative and allows us to fully express, out of that comes kind of this third piece called the transformation. But I know you...
Right. And well, I kind of, after doing this work again for 30, 40 years...
You look like you're 25.
Thank you. I love you. I transformed the cells in my face.
Nice. Okay, I have to learn that.
Yeah, I'll teach you.
Okay, good.
But I found really transformation is actually freeing the hidden parts of ourselves that got buried into what we call the bright shadow. That in there's a bright shadow. There's a brightness deep in our shadow. And there's a wonderment, there's a power, there's an empowerment. And when we free these various parts of ourselves, that's what transformation is. We become transformed. As an example, let's say you've had a pattern your whole life of sabotaging relationships and love. You don't know, what do I do? But there's something you're doing. You're picking maybe the wrong person for you, or you're doing acts that cause that kind of pattern, and you can't get out of that rat cage. The way to heal that is, again, go to the silent watcher and look and find a part of yourself that's completely opposite from how you behave.
I love that.
And bring it up, dredge it up. That's a treasure. And then say, this is cognitive behavior therapy. Bring it up and say, okay, every day when I see an ice cream cone, I'm going into a different pattern, but follow me.
That's okay.
Instead of saying, I can't have that, I'm going to get fat, you say, wow, I love ice cream. That's so good. I can actually have a bite of that, and I'm beautiful.
Yeah.
You can, and what will happen is you won't overeat the ice cream when you do that.
Because
I know.
You conceptualize.
I had a life-threatening eating disorder for 15 years, and I don't have that. I haven't had it for over 30 years. Because that's what I did. I made it okay. So that's what I mean about changing the inner landscape of ourselves.
So it's like the way you think, the way you approach things,
right.
The way you explore things, and then also how you kind of integrate that into your life.
Right. And I always really counsel people to keep a little journal. You don't have to write War and Peace in your journal. You just make little hieroglyphic notes. I even draw pictures. I have my people draw pictures so that you kind of log as you change. Mm-hmm. Write down your little information. And then at the end of the week from your silent watcher, just kind of assess it. Nice. And you'll be surprised. You're going to see yourself change, and then you're going to see your world around you change.
It's pretty cool. Deirdre's looking, just so if you're listening, she's got a little spiral-bound notebook. Actually, I always recommend my patients get one of those because I give a lot of drawings and pictures and ideas, and I think if we have a place and space, but I like your idea too. So you're saying have like a little notebook. And
notebook?
You don't have to have it doesn't have to look perfect or anything. You can just doodle.
Keep it in your purse, keep it in your bag, keep it by your thing. And you just always have it, and I use it. I just write little notes. Nice. All the time on things that I'm working on myself.
And then you go back at the end of the week, and then you kind of just see if anything pops out or what it means to you.
You can kind of see, wow, my thinking's changed. You can literally see, like within 30 days, you will see, oh my gosh, I'm thinking different. And when you think different, I'm telling you, it's magic.
It is.
The guy shows up, the job shows up, like out of nowhere.
It's powerful.
It's so powerful. That I don't know how that works. I can't tell you. All I know is it does work.
Well, yeah, it's like kind of there's some kind of energy that we can't measure. I know it's like string theory, but there's not really any way to measure it. So you're saying it just kind of naturally changes us, but in a way that's healthy.
It's healthy, and what happens is it puts us into I kind of joke, I call it the grid system. It puts you in a different grid, And so you're lining up with your dream instead of lining up with the patterns that kept you from having your dream. So you're getting in another stream, another river.
Do you think of that as another pattern, or what? How would you? Because I notice a lot of people use the word patterns.
Yes, part of what we're doing here is establishing another pattern, another groove in the brain.
Right,
It can be done.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, like you're saying, we can rewire our brain.
That's
in fact,
right.
We're rewiring our brain every time we do something.
Yeah, whether we want to cop to it or not.
Exactly. Well, and that's why it's so interesting what you're talking about, because, I see people come in and they're just very much going over, they're very convinced, too, of those thoughts and ideas. But what you're saying is by opening up, a dialogue kind of with yourself, either on paper or having mini-me kind of idea. Mm-hmm. If you're just jumping in, we talked a little bit about that and how to try it out. So keeping that ongoing process of just like exploration, too.
And part of it also, Dr. Deborah, getting back to mental, health and what's happening with us. We have lost our ability to have intimacy with one another. And that loss is a collective grief that we are all experiencing. Mm-hmm. And that grief is a driving force of a lot of what we're seeing, the disillusionment and of our mental health and the desire, to live. We talked about suicide, the desire to be here even. It's very, very tragic, and that's why it's so important we have these conversations, because conversation in this kind of a sphere, being honest and open, is intimacy.
Exactly. Well, and also, I know we're here just talking, the two of us, but I feel like we're all here together, whoever's listening, just we're not sitting in the same room. And I know I kind of jumped over talking about mental health stigma because I got interested in your things you were saying, but just to briefly go over stigma, because I think we need to almost come up with a new word for stigma.
Right.
Someone was saying we need to have an anti-stigma. But I broke it down into two different just types of stigma, which is social stigma and self-stigma. And social stigma is when attitudes and discriminating behavior are directed towards individuals with mental health problems as a result of a label they may have been given. And self-stigma is the internalizing by the mental health sufferer of their perception of discrimination. So social stigma is our media, what we see, out. There's positive media too. But I think, we see images, we see music, we see different things, and we internalize that based on how that's perceived out in the world. And then there's self-stigma, which is the example I give is if maybe we felt kind of fine most of our life, and then maybe we saw somebody in another group who was depressed, and we always thought, oh my gosh, I can't be depressed because I can't be like them. And then when we get depressed, then it's like, oh my gosh, I can't be like them. So, but I think what your approach is really beautiful, because you can kind of move in and out of that without it becoming a judgment.
Right.
I think we've become so judgmental of ourselves that we've lost. I try to teach people to make friends with themselves too.
Beautiful, absolutely.
Because we kind of forgot who we are and what how to relate with ourselves.
And the fact that also there's no such thing as I. Every person's a we. We have lots of voices in us, lots of different parts of ourselves. And those parts inside of us don't always see eye to eye. Sometimes it's paradoxical, and how do we find our way back together to find that cohesiveness, as you said, the integration. And that comes from that, from that watching, and then also being able to share. I say to people, look, find a few people you really feel safe with and ask them, say, could we meet once a week and just share what's going on in life, and then make an agreement to not judge or give advice, try to fix. Right. And I call this a soul pod. So he said, create for yourself a soul pod, because like dolphins, when they're in the ocean, they always have a pod, because if they're alone, they're going to get eaten. And we right now, we're all alone, and the world is eating us up.
And that's kind of, actually, that's so true. And that's like the message we send ourselves too, is like, yes. I'm going to get eaten. It's kind of like the fight or flight part of our brain too probably gets kicked in so much.
Well, it is so deep, because in our evolution, however you want to define that, It was groups. We are the kind of animal that we only survive in groups against Mother Nature and predators. So that we still have that in us.
It's a key function. The only thing is that we've evolved, and we actually can tap into these other areas that are actually very primal and a part of us ancestrally, because we've got ourselves kind of trapped into this.
Well, yeah, the whole idea of sitting around a fire and telling the hunting story, or sitting around cooking and telling the stories the way we used to live communal. We were storytellers, and telling stories is the most powerful way to heal. But you have to have a witness. You need to have someone that will listen. If somebody can hear your story, you can be healed. And so we don't always have a great therapist. We can't find a therapist. We don't have a church, or we don't have. Make it yourself. That's why I said organize. Your own soul pod. I have instructions on how to make a soul pod on my website.
Nice.
You just go and just create a group of people you feel very safe with, that you trust, and know that this is part of your mental health, is having the group where you can actually just talk.
I think we're just taught also to be so reliant, especially maybe in America. I mean, I know we're very individual,
right.
But I also think this idea that we're taught to not rely on people,
Right.
to not be
independent.
Yeah, it's just that it's taken.
But we're not independent. No one's independent. We're interdependent.
Exactly, we're intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
We're just chipping away here at the hour. Deirdre, I was wondering, what has your work with transformation healing taught you about the process and the ways in which healing occurs? I mean, I know you've been describing the ways it actually happens and what you can do, and then I know you've experienced this with a lot of people.
Well, I feel very blessed to have worked with just hundreds and hundreds of people in a very deep, intimate setting of sharing, and to discover, how healing occurs and how happiness returns, and how we can get to a place where we just feel right in the world, like everything's right. It's cool. It's chill.
It's all clicking together.
It's all clicking. And what I've really discovered, there's a few factors. One, we all have a healer within us. Mm-hmm. That healer is inside of every one of us. And second, that the inner world is a universe, and that once you get past the fear factor of what's in there, and you realize that there's nothing bad in there really, it's an exciting journey, and it's been really rewarding to have people go on that journey and then guided, and now they're just in it themselves, and they're on their path of self-discovery. And that's been very, very exciting to see how that works.
So people have the ability to overcome their fear.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, by doing that. And that is huge, because I think fear is very debilitating. I mean, not only just in the way we think, but also, in our neurological system and just our physiology.
Well, and also these patterns, these scripts of fear, they're talking to us, and we're following their direction, but we don't ever even really hear them.
Yeah.
They're just
passing by. We're not
passing
paying
through
attention.
us, and we're just operating out of impulse and reaction. Well, I reacted that way. So I would say, okay, you always react that way, but maybe there's another way to react. Let's go deeper. Let's go under the reaction. Let's go into the silent watcher and just what's there. And it's amazing when you go into that deep place, you'll go, oh my gosh, I hear a voice, and this is what the voice is saying. Oh my gosh, that voice is connected to this experience in my childhood. Oh my gosh, I was terrified because this experience happened, and it got logged in, and that voice from then, it's just been repeating my whole life. It sent me kind of down a rabbit hole. The empowerment when you realize that you now actually have the conscious power to say to the voice, thank you, but no thank you. I've moved on.
Yeah, it's very freeing.
It's very freeing. It's very exciting.
It is exciting, but I think to get to that, and then I do agree, it's very exciting and freeing, and it gives you this sense of kind of peace, and that you can get ride the waves of life. Yeah, I think that thinking about those things is probably, you need to have an outlet. I guess maybe doing that in nature is a good place.
Doing that in
Finding a quiet
nature,
place.
doing that, as I said, with a group. Again, on my website, my website is an informational site.
So, like, how do people, if you're interested in going to that, Deirdre will tell you?
It's just deirdrehade.com.
Okay.
Just Deirdrehade.com. You can say the Radiance Healing Journey. Put any of those, and I will come up. And I have there sections on just really on everything, how to create a sacred space in your house, how to set up an altar, how to meditate, how to mindfulness, all of
creating
it.
kind of a lifestyle too.
Yes.
So you don't like Deirdre is saying, you don't have to go to a therapist per se. You can create this whole kind of like a symphony of how you want your world to be.
Absolutely.
So I like that very much. So I was wondering, Deirdre, how do you feel that this personal healing or transformation could help a person through a mental health crisis? Because I know you said that you've worked with people who have really severe mental health issues. And are you saying that if someone has this kind of established, that they can ride that crisis out better, but also if they don't have that established, then having these tools while they're in the crisis, would that work?
Absolutely. If someone doesn't have the tools, they must have a guide. A person must have another person, a guide.
Like another, because you did say that, like another person present. That's when you were talking about maybe each week having someone.
A group, but I'm saying a professional, someone who is trained.
And skilled at that. Their expertise.
Because when the mind breaks, and there's a vast amount of confusion and there's paradoxical input coming in and you just can't see straight. The most important thing is to find the clear center. That is the most important thing, because as long as the mind has split into all these parts and fractured, which is what causes the mental health crisis, you can't find your way back into homeostasis. So what I do when I'm working with people is we do a meditation, a radiance meditation, a energy meditation to visualize a center core of light. I call that the pillar of light, that you can just guide your mind back into there and just sit in it.
And access that.
And access it so that the rest of the splits can just start to calm down.
I like that. Actually, that worked immediately for me.
Yes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's the first step, is you just getting to calm down. And you just go back to this. And I just did this. I live in Santa Barbara. Used to live in LA. I was down there for a week. And cars, people everywhere. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown.
I feel that way. I go to LA, yeah.
There was so much stimulus. And I said, oh, right. And I literally would go back to the central core of light, a beam of light, and anchored myself there and just say, Deirdre, just stay there. Just stay there. And immediately I became calm, and everything else was just as chaotic as it always was. So it works for everything.
If you're listening, try it. I just did it myself, and I can now. Actually, it's residually even still there. I can see like a light core going down the middle of me. So I'll have
and
to
you can use this the rest of your life.
I know,
it's amazing.
I love that. So you have these tools that you think could help people through this mental health crisis. And it is true. We get fractured. It's kind of like a tree where we split off parts of ourselves. So we really have to get that anchor there. I was wondering, Deirdre, can you tell us a little bit about your work with Jack Canfield's Transformational Leadership Council? I was just curious about that because I saw that on there, and I know you're doing some work with that.
Great. Well, this is a group of around 120 people who work in the field of transformation and new thought leadership. And we meet to really just support each other, share ideas, how do we get the message out maybe in another way, reach more people, because we are all dedicated to knowing that we are the dreamers, dreaming the dream, and we can redream the dream. And when enough of us redream the dream will change.
We were talking about the dream,
Yes.
and because I got trained as a dream analyst, so I'm very into dreams, and so is Deirdre. And so there's a saying that we're all dreaming the same dream, but it's not literally. I mean, we're not
Right.
seeing the same images
Yeah.
and same scenes, but the same, right, archetypes,
Yep.
themes,
Patterns, scripts, beliefs.
and so it's kind of interesting because when I think of that, it just makes me actually feel like everybody's so interconnected. But I think that because everybody thinks that their dreams are so separate, that it's a divisive piece. But actually, I think it's something that can bring us together.
Absolutely. And having conversation, and doing the work. I really believe in workshops and groups also, because there's a magic that happens when people are supporting each other heal and overcome obstacles.
There's a bonding.
There's a bonding. It's very
togetherness,
rewarding.
understanding. So we just have a little more time. I like to talk a little bit about like prevention awareness, and I know it sounds like, because that's why I was kind of talking about Jack Canfield's Transformational Leadership Council. And I was wondering, have you heard any campaigns or like organizations, I'm just always curious about this, in the transformation, like healing work, that are focused specifically toward reducing mental health stigma?
Well, that's fabulous. I do not have that answer for you, and I apologize.
No, you don't need to. It's just to stimulate the idea.
But it's definitely, I'm going to our meeting at the end of July in San Diego.
Yeah.
And that's something to bring up because, a stigma is a taboo.
Right.
And taboos, underneath taboos are great truths and wisdom for us. So it's time to lift the taboo on the mental health stigma. It really, really is time, because there is a glorious, glorious amount of truth inside of that.
I know. I feel like we're just at the crux. We're like really crossing over into that, but we're just in this very turbulent time. But I know Gandhi always says, out of turbulence comes peace. So I feel like we're in this turbulent time, but then something really peaceful.
And out of chaos comes new life.
Exactly.
In the Kabbalah, everything came out of chaos.
I love that. Well, it's true, but I just think people are afraid of chaos. The way I explain it, because I mean, of course, we live in Santa Barbara, is like I liken it to boogie boarding.
Right.
If you've ever boogie boarded, any of you out there, is you have to paddle to get on the wave, and then it kind of gets a little rough, and you have to really hold on, and then it gets a little bumpy, and it can get a little scary sometimes, but then you kind of cruise out at the end. So don't be afraid of uncomfortability. That's kind of an important and a big idea too.
Yes.
Is if you feel uncomfortable, think of some of the things that Deirdre was talking about too, because I think those are great tools to kind of incorporate into your life that you can use anywhere, and it can really help you move into a more healthy, beautiful space where you're loving and caring for yourself and others. I'm just always trying to imagine a world where each person has the opportunity toward self-peace, and also through the ability to overcome mental health barriers. And I know there's a lot of barriers to accessing services and treatment, and I feel like we just need more programs maybe to be developed.
Right.
And I notice it's interesting that the topic, the things we're talking about, you wouldn't see that in a mainstream medical office, but wouldn't that be great?
It would be great, because
that infused.
Yes, absolutely. Because the other conversation that some people are having, but we're not having it in the mainstream news, is that many times a mental break is actually somebody has now gone into a full-blown mystical experience. And when you go into a mystical spiritual experience, which is a natural, it's something that we do. It's natural. We've always done it. But now we do not have a languaging, or we do not have support for guidance. I've worked with many young people who tragically end up in a psychiatric ward, and I say to them and their parents, you didn't have, there's nothing wrong with you. You had a mystical experience. That's what they look like.
Yeah.
I've had many mystical experiences. I've seen, one day Yogananda showed up in front of me. So you could say I was crazy.
And well, I know.
Or you could, right?
Well, we do. I like that, though, the mystical experiences.
Yes.
When I worked at County Mental Health, I remember we get people calling in and they tell me these really, I always thought it was fascinating because I still remember some of them.
Wow.
Like one woman saying that this banana it was all the feelings of the world on the banana. And I remember I went and talked to, and I presented that case and everyone said, oh, well, she has schizophrenia. And I said, well, what if she has some special ability or skill?
Right.
What if we maximize and capitalize on that versus, what's not working?
Right, we're so fast to label someone schizophrenic, and this I have an issue with.
And also terminology.
And terminology, and then so fast to say something's wrong with you. Whereas perhaps you're a medium or you're clairvoyant or you're
shaman.
Or shaman. And if you see in a banana the whole world, well, that's called enlightenment. When you study enlightenment, you have an experience that everything in the world contains everything else. That's called oneness. You've broken through the barrier of separation.
It's like goose pimples, yeah.
And people will have these experiences, but no one's mirroring back and saying, oh, honey, this is what you're experiencing.
Well, then everybody's living in fear.
Now what? And so you support someone. Maybe she's now would be a healer one day, this person.
I just think people feel afraid to share that, and it's like a secret.
It's another taboo.
But maybe you could come up with another terminology. But I do think you're absolutely right that we jump a little too fast. And what I always emphasize is don't worry too much about your diagnosis. It's more kind of the things we're talking about how to manage your symptoms so that you can feel better and you can feel more, comfortable in your own self and move through the world and experience life.
And also, if you can treat and arrest a mental break quickly, you can steer it in to the direction of a transformation. But if you get labeled and logged and over-medicated and thrown in a system where you're seen as a machine cog, you will go, that mental illness will get worse and worse and worse. It won't get, a pattern will now be laid in instead of a healing. I've watched it. It can go one
It's very
or other
divisive.
ways.
What's really sad is like in Greco-Roman times, all the people who were the mystics and poets and musicians and thinkers, and that's who everybody revered. But along the way, we kind of lost track of that.
Absolutely.
We just got so disconnected from ourselves. So I think the key, kind of what we've been talking about too, is really learning to reconnect with ourselves and cherishing ourselves, and not being so focused on how our beauty, not necessarily physical beauty, but how the beautiful things we have within us, how they compare to another person, because it might be completely different, but you still have something really beautiful to share with the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I just think, how do people find access to this? Okay, I think I have time maybe for one more question. Okay. I was just wondering, how do you think healing and transformation intersect in our local and global communities? And, with us talking about mental health, how can we put more of this healing and transformation into our lives to help create that, like on a local level, on a global level? I know you're saying like one, connect with ourselves and find other people. Is there any other things we could do like in our daily lives, just, when we're walking by people or we're moving through the world?
Absolutely. It's really, to change the world, it's going to depend on us changing ourselves and changing our view. And again, getting back to the mindfulness of, we all it's what the ego does. The ego judges. So if you can watch yourself and go, I'm not going to judge this time. Or, I'm not going to be a little snarky to that person. I'm going to understand why that person's like that.
Being curious.
And come with an open mind. Give a smile to the person at the checkout counter. Offer a helping hand to a stranger. Really, it's really the kind of the core basic virtues that we learn.
Of humanity.
Of humanity. That's what's going to get us back. And if we each do that with each other, it will spread out
to our global community. I like that. Well, I mean, I think we've been talking about how people have negative beliefs, I think, about mental health problems. And I think that it's a good opportunity, even as we're sitting here in these different shows, just to think of other ways of thinking about mental health. And not feeling so stigmatized that, just because you have something that's different or you're not doing what everybody else is doing or thinking the same way, to allow yourself kind of that grace and space to just be who you are,
Right.
and learn to accept that, which is,
Right.
but I think it takes some work. So, I mean, I think Deirdre did give some great tips. And I just feel that mental health stigma creates such a wall that stops the compassion and conversation. And so having these compassionate conversations really builds inclusiveness and teaches others what you've learned. So you can do kind of what Deirdre and I are doing, just, try having your own conversation with someone that's stimulating or you feel attracted to, that can be thought-provoking or help, you understand something. And I think we can do this by starting to treat everyone more as equal and reducing discrimination. So let's create more conversations and also culture that are accepting of each person as we work toward prevention. So Deirdre, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you so much. I really loved everything you said. And make sure if you're interested in Deirdre's work to check out her website. I did look at that, and it's got a lot of cool things on there. Do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Yes, I would just say, in our very distracting times today, know that you are a spiritual being having a human experience, and the human experience really is meant to be glorious and wonderful. Use those tools of the silent watcher and that central core pillar, your pillar of light. And if you feel yourself starting to go off or your mind ruminate or any negative place, just simply go to that place of light and the central and the silent watcher and just hang out there for a bit, because as an alchemy will happen, an inner alchemy that will get you on track, because you are the healer within.
I love that. So just know you can heal yourself too, and that you have everything within you to take care of yourself. I think we can work together to help create a supportive environment that can empower and care for each individual. And just some ways to work together are volunteering, checking in with ourselves, learning about other cultures, getting accurate information from accurate, reliable sources. And I think this can lead to including understanding and caring. So I'm looking forward to talking to you next week. And thank you again, Deirdre, for coming on the Dr. Deborah Show. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wonderful.